Welcome everyone, StealthyShiroean here, and today I'm bringing you my review of the Humble Choice bundle for October 2025. We're back to form this month with a relatively decent bundle. No more sports games or free-to-play MMOs this month, but instead some solid additions as well as a couple nice surprises. As always, let me know what you think of this month's bundle in the comments below. Be sure to check the timestamps for specific games, and stay tuned for my final thoughts in the end. Okay, let's get to the review. Starting off the bundle is Caravan Sandwitch, a cozy exploration game set in a beautiful and dilapidated world. Despite what the title would suggest, you don't actually play as a witch. Instead, you play as Suge, who just received a distress signal from her missing sister that disappeared 6 years ago in some sort of expedition on her home planet. Visually, I felt the game world was striking, and I think it would be a treat to explore. Luckily, that's exactly what the game wants you to do. Your moment-to-moment gameplay is running around collecting things, doing some light puzzle solving or platforming, finding viewpoints to reflect at, cool beats to listen to, etc. It's all very cozy despite the urgency with the main character's mission. Throughout my time with it, I encountered no combat and nothing that could hurt the player at all, even falling from great heights. Additionally, there was some driving in a van, but it felt very stop and go since I constantly felt the need to get out and collect something to explore a ruin. Maybe that changes as you progress further, but the van and the driving mechanic felt peripheral despite it being in the name of the game. The no stress gameplay felt nice, and this is something I could definitely see myself coming back to in the future. Next up is Hotel Renovator, which is a simulation game that does exactly what it says on the tin. These types of simulation games definitely have more of a niche audience that I don't really think I'm a part of, but I imagine this can scratch a certain itch for some. Starting the story mode, you inherit this hotel from, yeah, you probably guessed it, your grandfather. Immediately, people want to start renting rooms despite the whole place being trashed. I honestly don't get that, but whatever. The tutorial starts you off with renovating your first room. And, well, it's kind of a tedious process. First, you need to remove all the trash, which is almost everything in the room, and you do this by individually clicking on every item to remove it with your crowbar. Then you need to clear away the floors and walls, which is a little easier since you can hold down the button to do a large removal. After that's done, sweep up and get ready to repanel, paint, carpet, whatever, to the floors, walls, and ceiling. This was the part that really didn't make any sense because the game forces you to replace it square by square. You have to hold down the button and drag it all over the surface and then release it for it to be placed. There is no fill bucket, so your only options are tile by tile, or for some reason spray painting it on? Yeah, I don't know. It's really annoying and easily the worst part of the gameplay. Once that's all complete, you finally get to place your furniture and other accessories, which was kind of enjoyable. I think for people who like to design things, and maybe this is decent enough if you're looking for something different. For myself, I'd rather just go and return to House Flipper that we got in Humble Choice a few years back. Shogun Showdown is something I knew in name only, and that it was a roguelite, so I kinda didn't bother trying to learn anything more about it. Luckily, Humble Choice has set me straight because this is an excellent little game. Shogun Showdown is a turn-based roguelite where you need to think really carefully about your moves. Every movement, change of direction, skill preparation, and attack all counts as taking turns. The enemies follow the same logic and telegraph this to the player so they can build a proper strategy and counter. On the surface, it seems deceptively simple, but it has a lot of complexity the further in you get. Every time I encountered a new enemy, I was on my guard since I wasn't sure what they could do yet. This is definitely not a game to rush because if you do, then you'll probably wind up dead. However, when you do see the numbers behind the matrix and manage to pull off combos where the enemy can't even react, or clear an encounter completely unscathed, that's really satisfying. I thought the pacing felt good too. I wasn't steamrolling everything on the first or second run like you can do in some roguelites, and I wasn't being absolutely destroyed, slowing my progression to a snail pace. That's actually really nice since you can't get upgrade currency unless you beat bosses. This is a fun game and a roguelite that I actually see myself coming back to because of the expertly done turn-based battles.
No, it bit me. Now what? It's making little squeaking noises.
Following that is Cryptmaster, a dungeon crawler with a twist, which is that you have to type out your attacks and gain letters to guess new abilities. Not quite a typing game, but typing is essentially what you're doing to interact in the world. However, Cryptmaster brings more to the table than just typing to attack. The players take the role of an undead adventuring party brought back from a disembodied necromancer. Gameplay is all done with the keyboard. I guess there was a controller option, but given the kind of game that this is, keyboard seems best. Anyway, arrows move around the rooms, and then typing to interact with things. When opening chests, players have to tell the necromancer to do things like describe, use, taste, etc. in order for the players to learn more clues about what's in the chest. Then they need to guess the item, and if they get it right, then they get the letters, some of which can be used to learn new abilities. Letters also act as loot drops from defeated enemies. And when I say all that, it's a bit hard to explain in words, and probably is best just played. And you really should play this game. It sounds unconventional, and truthfully the uniqueness factor alone is enough to at least give it a try. However, the voice work and dialogue is really well done. There were several times where the game had me chuckling because of its good humor.
I'm not doing that just for your gratification. You already asked me this. I don't take requests.
I found myself trying to say several different things just to see what the necromancer would reply with. Needless to say, I definitely want to return to this one.
Enough of that!
Playing Story of Seasons Pioneers of Olivetown is like playing an older Harvest Moon game. And yes, I know that Story of Seasons is essentially Harvest Moon just with the name change after the Natsume split. What I mean though is that this game feels like the formula really hasn't changed at all, as far as this game is concerned, which is both a good and bad thing. Gameplay wise, everything feels familiar. Farming, mining, taking care of animals, and fishing, although I didn't do any of that in my hour, but it's all there. The setting itself is very vanilla to these kinds of games. You inherited a farm from your grandfather. It's set in a little village where you get to know everyone. Nothing really interesting about the setting like other farming sim titles have tried to do, even with similar gameplay trappings. Actually, with a name like Pioneers of Olivetown, I had assumed there would be a bit more pioneering. However, that was your grandfather who did all that, and you just inherited the farm. Sure, you pitch a tent at the start, but it's super easy to get that first house upgrade. It just seems that the game would be much more exciting and fresh playing as the grandfather than as another rehashed Harvest Moon. The game itself played fine, and I guess I'm happy to have it, although I would have much preferred if we had gotten a Rune Factory game, or if in the future we get Grand Bazaar, which sounds like a much more interesting Story of Seasons game. I never played the 1994 original for System Shock, and playing this remake, I have to admit that I'm quite surprised with it. In my mind, shooters of that era all played like Wolfenstein 3D or Doom. Admittedly, outside of Wolfenstein 3D, Descent, and the original Half-Life, I never played that many 90s shooters. First off, you have an inventory in this game and can just collect random stuff. These things can be turned to scrap and eventually into credits to purchase consumables, and presumably other items as the game goes on. Combat is slower paced here. You don't want to go in guns blazing because you won't get very far. Furthermore, my first hour, I didn't even have a gun, which is wild to me. Also, exploration felt very open. I mean, there are gates in place to control player progression, but I did appreciate the level of freedom the game gave. Additionally, I did not expect System Shock to have such a fleshed out world. The atmosphere in this game is incredible. The station your player is on feels like a real place. Well, one that's gone to hell anyway. There was a certain level of tension I felt while creeping through its halls, and I genuinely wanted to know what the heck was going on. Especially since it seems like I was the one who caused this AI to start killing everyone on this station. Oops. I enjoyed this game immensely, and I'm incredibly happy to add this one to my library, despite, originally, not knowing anything about it other than it's what inspired BioShock. The penultimate game, V Rising, is actually one that I owned before the bundle and put in a considerable amount of time into it. Just shy of 75 hours, so I can safely say that this is a good game. Those interested in the survival crafting aspect of the game might be a bit turned away from the isometric top-down view, since many are first-person or third-person over the shoulder. I'd still suggest giving this game a try though. While the concept of a vampire cutting down trees and mining stones seem ridiculous, the ability to build your own castle is pretty cool. For me though, since base building isn't entirely my thing, I really liked V Rising for its combat and progression. Combat is much like an action RPG, with dodges, skill shots, and the like. There are several powers to unlock to create different builds. Each boss that you kill grants you new abilities and recipes, so you always have something new to play with. Some of the later content did get quite challenging, but I thought it was balanced just enough to be tough, but not impossible once you start learning the boss fight. Overall, a solid game and one I'd wholeheartedly recommend. Personally, I've been meaning to get back into this since there have been a couple big updates since my wife and I last played it.
Soviet Union. We are confident that you will be thrilled to live and work in this world.
For the headliner this month, we have Atomic Heart, another first-person shooter. Atomic Heart takes place in an alternate history where the Soviet Union has created an utopia built on world-class robots that can do everything and a system that universally connects everyone together. What could possibly go wrong?
For your safety, please do not unfasten your seatbelt until the vehicle has come to a complete stop.
So, right off the bat, this game is gorgeous and has quite an interesting world design. There seems to be clear Fallout vibes with that blend of 50s meets sci-fi. A lot of my first hour was just spent looking around and taking in the scenery because I was really impressed with the set pieces. Combat seemed solid. As with System Shock, it took a while to get a gun, and even when I did, I didn't have much ammo, so I used it sparingly. There seems to be a bit more emphasis on melee combat with a dedicated dodge, and needing to time that properly when the enemies do a special attack. It was a bit challenging on normal difficulty, but the game does give you a bunch of healing. And also, like System Shock, you're searching for supplies as well. Although here you have a little robot to help you hoover up everything in a room. It's helpful, but I thought the default key binding made it slightly awkward, so it might be rebound when I return to this. The only thing I disliked about the game so far is the dialogue. The main character in particular. He's supposed to be confident, kinda cocky, and a bit edgy. And the writing shows this by constantly having him cuss. I've said this before, I don't have issues with cursing in my media, but this guy cusses way too much. Like, every other sentence seems to be a swear. It gets a bit tiring after a while, and it feels like lazy writing to me. Although it doesn't bring the game down that much, as I'm still interested in everything else. Okay, let's wrap this up and see if this bundle is worth it or not. I based my rating solely on whether I thought the game was worth playing on about an hour or so of hands-on gameplay. Also, I'd be grateful if you could please give the video a like if you're enjoying it, and subscribe if you want to see more video game coverage in the form of reviews, first impressions, and of course, these humble choice videos every month. And if you happen to watch this in the first week, then please give the video a hype as well if you found it helpful. Overall, this was a good month. I'm sure all would agree it's a big step up from last month. I'm certainly happy to own many of these games. I think my one issue is that we didn't get any spooky games this month. I know, scary games are not everyone's cup of tea, and it seems many don't care when we get a horror-heavy month. But I'm just asking for at least one horror game. Oh well. Anyway, let's get to the final recommendations. For the must-plays this month, I've played System Shock and Cryptmaster. I had such a good time with System Shock and was really impressed with what I played that I couldn't not put it in this section. Maybe some of its age will show past my hour and I'll rethink how I rated this, but for now, I'm really eager to play some more. Cryptmaster was also another pleasant surprise. I place it here not just as a must-play for myself, but to emphasize just how much you really should give this one a shot. I feel it's something many might pass up, and you'd be doing yourself a disservice. For my strong recommendations, I placed V Rising, Atomic Heart, and Shogun Showdown. V Rising is a solid game with a strong theme, however, personally, as it's a survival crafting game, I can't play these games by myself. I hate the endgame grind in these games without playing with my wife, so that's the only reason why I put it here instead of must play. Atomic Heart has a brilliant world design and seemingly fun gameplay from what little I actually got to experience. I'm not the biggest fan of the main character, but it's a small price to pay for everything else. Shogun Showdown is such a fun roguelike that really shines with its tactical turn-based battles. I'm not sure how repetitive it will get after a while, but I know I'd like to keep it installed to play a run or two in my near future downtime. In my week recommendations, I place Caravan Sandwich and Story of Seasons Pioneers of Olivetown. Caravan Sandwich offered a cozy exploration vibe that I think will be nice for whenever I'm looking for that. Pioneers of Olivetown is a farming sim game through and through and doesn't do much to set itself apart, but it's also a decent farming sim that could maybe offer something to hardcore genre enthusiasts. Finally, in my Don't Bother With section is Hotel Renovator. I know that being a chore tends to be this genre shtick, but I just don't usually care for it. If certain things were more streamlined and less annoying to use, then it could actually be something I'd consider playing again in the future. However, I'm sure there are better titles out there. Do you agree with my thoughts? What games, if any, are you looking forward to playing? Let me know what your thoughts are, if there are any different recommendations you'd make in the comments below. I hope this video helped you in some small way, and if it did, then please consider leaving a like, comment, subscribe, or whatever it is you feel like doing. Thanks for watching, and have a nice day.